Let's bring in an expert voice on this. We have S. Gopalakrishnan, co-founder, executive vice chairman at Infosys, who's also the president at CII, joining us right now to understand and to talk to us about what does India Inc. want the government to do and the policymakers to do so that recovery in the economy can come in, sentiment gets improved, and of course the overall growth prospects start to improve once again. Mr. Gopalakrishnan, thank you so much, sir, for joining us. My key question and the most obvious one to you is the way this entire crisis, I would say, has been handled. Do you think it's been handled in the proper way?
See, it is very difficult to say at this point whether this is enough or this will address all the issues. I think we need to look at short-term measures. I think the reaction of the rupee over the last 2-3 days says that there is some positive impact on the rupee, and there has been stability in the last 2-3 days. So hopefully that will give us the time to look at the medium to long term issue. So medium to long term, we have to look at addressing the issue of investor confidence, addressing the issue of fiscal deficit, current account deficit, address the issue of growth. I think if we can address the issue of growth, I think we would have addressed the medium to long term impact of the depreciation.
We bring in reforms, but then in desperation sometimes we have also brought in steps which have been seen as retrograde, and in some cases also seen as capital controls, whether it's NRI remittances or even limiting the kind of investment that companies can do overseas. Are we really sending out the right signal?
So it is to do with Indian companies and Indian nationals investing outside. As far as I know, there are no capital controls imposed at this point other than Indians and Indian entities investing outside. And hopefully these will be reviewed, and as the finance minister has said, these will be reviewed when situation improves. So we'll have to go with that.
Sir, I wanted to put across a question to you on the sentiment impact. India Inc.'s sentiment and the way it is seeing how the situation is panning out right now, it's actually been deteriorating over the last couple of months. What do you think the government can do besides talk and meet bankers and meet FIIs? What can it do to revive that sentiment?
See, trust is something which once broken takes a long time to mend, unfortunately. I think the process has started. I think the government and the finance minister especially has been working very hard to address the issues, has been working very hard to rebuild the trust, rebuild the confidence, and I'm optimistic that looking backwards, we will think that we would look at it and say this was a difficult period, but we were able to address issues. See, fortunately for India, because our dependence is mainly on domestic consumption, domestic economic activity, exports only contribute about 20% to our GDP. There are a lot of things we can do in order to improve the situation.
See, if there was a list that our corporate leaders could hand over to the government, just as suggestions as to what it could do to revive sentiment, to bring back investment, capital flows, what would those suggestions be?
So the immediate concern is to look at stability, look at making sure that all the clarifications that are issued, all the approvals that have been given in terms of infrastructure projects actually fructify on ground. That means they start showing results in a timely manner. So that will improve the sentiment, it will increase the confidence. So that's the immediate thing. It is to make sure that whatever has been said is actually real on the ground in a timely fashion. So that's the first thing. Second is to look at reducing our imports and increasing our exports so that we can address the issue of current account deficit and fiscal deficit. We have to control our expenses. So these are some of the things that we can do. We have to look at the infrastructure projects and those projects which have received fast track approval indeed start getting implemented on the ground.
Okay, while we see the government doing its bit, is the corporate sector going to put in additional investment, because the investment side has not really picked up and we do see corporates going slow as far as their investment plans are concerned? Would the recent measures by the government be enough to perhaps spur India Inc. to actually bring in more investments?
So here unfortunately it's a chicken and egg problem, right? Indian industry has invested significant amount of money. There are a lot of projects which are completed but are yet to see revenues. There are projects that are stalled and things like that, and in this environment to expect the industry to continue investing I think is not correct, right? Because you have made significant investments. The last several years the Indian industry has been on a fast track in terms of investments and things like that. So you know, it is to be expected that there is a pullback at this point. But having said that, I am positive in saying that the Indian industry is very committed to India. Of course, we have significant investments in India. We have significant number of jobs that we have created in India, and Indian industry is still very much optimistic and very much for investment into India.
Similar to that, do we see the industry upping the capacity levels at which they are currently working on? Because we've already seen utilization levels coming down quite sharply. Is the industry again going to be slow as far as adding more capacity?
See, they are going slower than expected because of some of the challenges that you have faced in terms of approvals and things like that, or input dependence on inputs that are necessary. So for example, power, right? So there are challenges that we are facing, and that has slowed down.
So if I were to ask how the government can bring in the required dollars, clearly a superficial move such as the token FDI hike, etc., that doesn't seem to be working too well.
See, the FDI policy is one, but how is that policy implemented on the ground will drive investment. So that's the difference, right? The policy is just the beginning. In order to get actual investments, you have to make sure that the policy is implemented such that investments are attracted. So, you know, if we take manufacturing for example, right, if we create the most competitive environment for manufacturing, you know, land is available, labor is flexible, the approvals are given, clearances are given, environmental clearance is given on a fast track mechanism for projects that are relevant for the country, then you will see manufacturing increase in India. So it is about implementation on the ground that will make a difference.
Point noted, sir. You know, if one looks at the outward FDI by Indian companies, that's in the month of June, I think that's dropped more than 35%. What do you think is causing this slump, in Indian appetite for assets abroad? Is it because companies want to retain cash right now?
It is focusing on conserving cash. The global environment is improving, but it's still not the best environment for significant risk taking at this point. And in that environment, it is expected that the investments, whether it is inside or outside, slows down.
Being the industry leader as well as industry captain in the IT space, what more would you ask the government to do to revive the export space? Because export is something that we have been lagging on. We are trying to cut back on the import, but what we are not really doing is trying to give a thrust to exports. What more measures would you ask the government to do here?
So on the positive side, in the last 1 month, exports have gone up by about 11%. So that is a positive sign. Maybe it is a result of the depreciation in the rupee. So exports have gone up. Now if I come to IT sector alone, if you look at the Rangachari committee report and implement the Rangachari committee report, again remove some of the uncertainties in the implementation of policies, you will see that it does create a positive environment for exports. The IT industry is growing, is expected to grow around 12 to 14%, and I think that's, considering the environment in which we are operating, that is a significant growth rate.
Would you urge the government to bring back tax incentives for the IT space?
See, we have to look at formation of new businesses. We have to look at small and medium enterprises. So, I would say that we should look at incentives for small businesses, incentive for startups. We need to look at ease of doing business, cost of doing business, and if we can improve both these parameters, not just IT sector but other sectors also, we'll see faster activity, we'll see faster pace of creation of new businesses, startups will increase. I think all of those will be positive, not just for the IT sector but industry in general.
Right, Mr. Gopalakrishnan, thank you so much, sir, for joining us.